Congress made that poll promise, perhaps also drew a parallel between the Bajrang Dal and the PFI, but there's more breaking news update coming in.
Right, Bajrang Dal staging a protest, and this is at the Hanuman Temple in Madiwala. So the protest or the blowback against the promise of the Congress party to ban Bajrang Dal if they come to power still continues. The BJP has been calling the Congress anti-Hindu. Bajrang Dal workers continuing their protest. My colleagues Madhav and Deepak joining us on the broadcast with the details. Deepak, the Bajrang Dal is continuing the protest. The Congress party in its manifesto mentioning a ban on Bajrang Dal if it comes to power.
Well, Pratibha, it looks like, the BJP is going to use this for their gain as much as they can, because up until now, the, entire campaign of the Congress was revolving around local issues. It was on the allegations of corruption that they were making. They were not giving any ground for the BJP to, tap on their strengths. That is the Hindutva card. And now they've, given into it on a platter to really the BJP. And here you have organizations like the VHP and the Bajrang Dal, of course, who are upping the ante. Yet another protest being staged here in Bengaluru. And you can see this is quite a big one, as all of them, of course, are now gathering outside this temple here in Bengaluru's Madiwala. And, they are holding placards as well. You can see placards being distributed. They are chanting slogans in about 5 to 10 minutes from now. They're also expecting them to recite the Hanuman Chalisa as well. We, of course, will try and get in a word from a few of them. As they do, here continue to raise these slogans. We've been told that they're expecting a few leaders to turn up here, and the others will not be speaking to the media until those leaders come. So we'll of course wait for them so that we could get in a reaction as well, because we've seen these sort of protests, happen over the last couple of days. But now it's only intensifying, because there is an opening that even the BJP senses, which is quite important for them, because the Congress, of course, has been attacking them on various fronts, setting quite a bit of narratives. But when you look at this particular issue, it has, of course, blown up. And more importantly, as we try and look at these protests intensify, it only goes on to show that right-wing organizations and the BJP will continue to mount pressure.
Okay. And as far as this change in stance on part of the Congress is concerned, Deepak, the BJP continues to ask as to why is there no consistency whatsoever? Why was this kind of a poll promise made when there is an acknowledgement from some within the Congress of how this perhaps cannot be a promise that can be fulfilled? So those kind of questions being asked by the BJP, but interestingly we see how these kind of temple visits are being made more frequently by several Congress leaders and Congress supporters and workers as well in the meanwhile. Deepak.
Yes, I couldn't hear your question very clearly, but when you look at this entire situation that has been panning out now for the Congress leaders themselves, they are in a bit of a fix because of, what has happened. Some of them, when I spoke to them, themselves are questioning whether this was actually needed to be mentioned in the manifesto, because while you have senior Congress leaders like Mr. Veerappa Moily, like Mr. Jagdish Shettar, now of course recently joined the Congress party, where they're saying that it's not even under the ambit of the state government to ban an organization.
Okay,
so
but clearly this seems to have divided the Congress party. Stay on with us, Deepak. Breaking inputs also coming in of the Congress party seemingly divided on the Bajrang Dal issue. Does the party endorse a ban on Bajrang Dal or not? Yesterday we heard senior leaders Veerappa Moily making that statement. A similar statement also being made by Jagdish Shettar, distancing himself, saying it's not going to happen. Now we have Harish Rawat, who has come out in support of a ban on the group.
पर तो रोक है ही है, और रोक लगनी चाहिए, हम उसके समर्थन में हैं। बजरंग के नाम पर जो लोग गुंडागर्दी करते हैं, उन पर रोक लगाने की बात कही गई है। कोई किसी संगठन पर रोक लगाने की बात नहीं कही गई है। गुंडागर्दी करने का किसी के नाम पर भी किसी को कोई हक नहीं है।
We also have Madhav joining us live. Madhav, have you been able to get in a sense from within the Congress on why are these kind of contradictory version statements being put out by several? On one hand, very clearly laid out by Veerappa Moily and Jagdish Shettar that there's no question of a ban on Bajrang Dal, given that a possibility of that nature doesn't exist on ground. On the other hand, you have the likes of Pawan Kheda and now yet another Congress leader who reiterate that they are going to stick to their promise that was made in the manifesto.
Well, many political analysts have been looking at this particular issue and they feel that the Congress, by mentioning the Bajrang Dal and the PFI in the same breath in its own manifesto, has literally handed over an issue to the BJP on a platter. And the reason is that, A, of course, the very fact that the BJP at least says that the PFI and the Bajrang Dal's own actions, own cases cannot be compared. There's a huge difference in the actions of these two organizations and the purpose of the same, number one. Number two, they have also come out to say that even in terms of actually going ahead and imposing a ban, which is specifically mentioned that they would take action against organizations that promote hate in the name of religion or caste and in fact go ahead and explore all the legal options, including a ban. Clearly, Mr. Veerappa Moily, who's been the Chief Minister of the state, who's been the Union Law Minister, was the first to come out and say there's no question of banning the Bajrang Dal. Mr. Jagdish Shettar then coming out to say that he agrees with Veerappa Moily and that there is no question of going ahead and banning this. And then when asked even today at the press conference, Mr. Dinesh Gundurao also went on to say that they have not said anything wrong, that it is not the state that can ban, it can only make a recommendation for a ban. Then the question arises, if there was so much of wisdom within the Congress party, were these leaders A, either not consulted, was it a decision to, which was hurriedly put in at the last minute, and who is responsible for this? Certainly become important questions as to why, in fact, in such an important election, remember Karnataka by any standards is an election where no single party has a cakewalk. Both the BJP and the Congress are really having to battle it out, the JDS even, in this entire election. In a situation like this, given that it's a high-stakes battle, particularly for the Congress party that has not had much success in the recent assembly polls, it becomes all the more important for them to ensure that they're putting their best foot forward. So a lot of questions as to whether this is an issue, A, that they have handed over on a platter without adequate thought internally, and B, whether this will actually impact on the voters when they go to cast their votes on the 10th of May.